All right, by now you probably know how this works. I create some ridiculous trade options for you, and you just react to them. So, before we start this video, these are trades for Damian Lillard, and because it's a Damian Lillard trade video, I have to trade Damian Lillard. Okay, so I've made some trades where I send them around the league to other teams, to other competitive teams. I do want to preface this, though. I'm not saying that all these trades are going to work. I'm not saying any of these trades should happen. I'm not endorsing any of these trades. I'm not saying they're all good trades. I simply wanted to make a video posting some options and getting some feedback. That's what this is. So give some negative, give some positive feedback. You can go down to the comments. You can leave likes. You can dislike the video. You can go yell at me on Twitter at Sam_Teets33. However you want to express your frustrations, go for it. But just understand that this video is not me endorsing all these trades. This is me just putting these out in the world to try to get some reaction and try to just start a discussion. Because I enjoy this kind of content. But the first trade, I'm a Miami Heat fan. And I'm not endorsing these trades because I would have to think very much longer and much harder about these situations. But I can see situations where Pat Riley goes, okay, we made the finals less than a year ago. And then we got swept in the first round. How do we turn things around if we have some core pieces that we like? How do we turn everything around this summer? We've got a lot of free agents and restricted free agents. How do we turn things around? Well, by one way, you might keep one of your stars around. Your two stars currently being Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo. Keep one of them around and bring in another star, maybe a superstar, to put you over the top. And in this case, that superstar would be Damian Lillard. And you put Lillard next to Bam Adebayo in this situation because you trade Jimmy Butler, Tyler Hero, who did not have a good second season. I think he'll rebound in year three. We've seen guys do that in the past. We've seen guys have a better year three after having a bit of a sophomore slump. But I don't think he'll ever reach the level of a all-star at this point. I'm kind of over that kind of talk. You know, I know some people were having it, and I'm not the kind of Heat fan that will drop dead over Tyler Hero. I don't think he's going to be a superstar, but I think he'll be a quality starter for sure. So in this situation, Butler, Hero, a second-round pick, 2 firsts for Damian Lillard, and I think the situation here that I don't agree with because bear in mind that I made these trades, or at least took the screenshots of them over a week ago. And one situation I don't like here is if I'm Portland, I'm asking for another first-round pick. If I'm the Trailblazers, I want 3 firsts, Jimmy, Hero, and a second for Damian Lillard. That's all I'm accepting. I can't accept anything less than that. And Portland has every right to ask for that because Lillard is a top 10 pick, top 10 player in the NBA currently. And you cannot underestimate the value of those types of players. It's so important. Now, granted, there are some people who would argue that Jimmy Butler is a top 12, top 13, top 14 player, and certainly that number has probably dwindled after his offensive performance in this past playoffs after being so dominant in the finals and in that run last year. But Butler is a two-way player as opposed to someone like Lillard who is going to be just an offensive weapon but not give you much on defense. So it's an interesting situation, but I think you could see a scenario where Butler plus a lot of first-round picks, including Tyler Hero, could go to Portland and maybe give them not a better chance than having Lillard, obviously, but give them a little bit of hope for the future and maybe moving on from this era where Lillard has been very good for them. He's been tremendous for them, but they just have not capitalized on having one of the best players of his generation. Now, the other situation, it's a little more complicated. Nurkic is not in love with being in Portland right now. There have been some rumors that he might ask for a change of scenery, but he said that he will definitely ask out if Damian Lillard is no longer there next year. So in this scenario, if Lillard's being traded, then Nurkic has to go too, just somewhere. And I think the Miami Heat could make a deal where they try to get both these players. And how would they swing that? Well, first off, the money has to match to some extent. We know Tyler Hero is going to be involved in this deal. We know that because Butler was involved in the last one. Bam has to be involved in this one, even though he's probably considered like the untouchable piece for the Miami Heat right now. They expect him to continue to develop beyond just being an all-defensive center and a guy who's a very good handles for a bit of an undersized center. They expect him to expand his range, eventually become one of the most versatile players in the league. But in the scenario, we're going to trade him, even though the Miami Heat don't want to. So Hero, Bam, and we're going to do a sign trade for Goran Dragic because the money works out in this situation. Oh, wait, sorry, there's a team option. I don't know why I'm saying sign trade. I'm so used to the Kyle Lowry deals at this point, where it's a sign trade. We're going to pick up the team option for Warren Dragic, which I don't think they would do in a situation unless they were going to trade for someone like Lillard. So about $20 million there for the Warren Dragic contract, who's been a good player for them coming off the bench, especially him, Adebayo, and Hero go along with 2 first-round picks and a second-round pick for Nurkic and Lillard. My situation or my issue here is, again, it should probably be at least 3 first-round picks in this situation where you're getting both Nurkic and Lillard. 3 first, a second, Hero, Adebayo, and Dragic is probably going to be the asking price at the minimum. And that's not a problem. I think that's a realistic expectation to ask for Portland because you're giving up a generational player and a future Hall of Famer. Now, a deal that would send him to the Clippers. Now, this would be very interesting because Paul George's value is going to be extremely high coming off these playoffs, considering how dominant he's been in the postseason with Kawhi Leonard being out, asserting himself as, if they come back, if they win the series against the Suns, because currently they are down 3-2, if they come back and win the series, or even force a Game 7 without Kawhi Leonard, you have to start talking about Paul George as potentially being a top option on a team again, because he was that in Indiana. And even though they never got to the finals, he may not be a top option on a championship team, but he's going to be a great option nonetheless. He's going to get you far. He could get you to a conference finals by himself. Hypothetically. So in this trade, you send someone, Damian Lillard, who's a top 10 player, for someone like Paul George, who's probably a top 15 player. Yogi Ferrell as well, just because he give you a point guard there in exchange. And the issue, again, will probably be the compensation. It'll be the draft picks. Even for someone as good as Paul George, who has been one of the best two-way players in the past 10 years, who is an all-NBA player this year, you still probably shouldn't be including, instead of just 1 first-rounder, at least 2 first-round picks, and probably multiple second-round picks. They could ask for 3 first-rounders, and that would be a realistic ask. But I would absolutely turn that down at that point if I'm the Clippers. There's no reason for you to send 3 first-round picks if you even have that ammo at this point for Damian Lillard when Paul George is still a very good player and you're going to have Kawhi Leonard coming back potentially next year. So the only way I see this happening, or I see them giving up more than what I have on the screen for Lillard, is if Kawhi Leonard is going to be, I believe, has the potential to be a free agent this summer if he goes to the front office and says, hey, I want to play with Lillard. George has been great, but I want Lillard. If he goes to the front office and says that I don't think the Clippers have a choice. They're going to have to make a deal or try to at least make the deal on the screen or give even more than that to Portland. But I think it's a long shot to happen in the end. All right, 76ers fans for choice. We're going to do a bunch of 76ers trades here because they have been trying to find out ways to get Damian Lillard. I don't see it happening. I just don't. I think the 76ers fans in general are undervaluing Damian Lillard so much. It just doesn't make sense to me how it could be like some of the trades they put together are just unrealistic. Even this is going to be pushing it a little bit. But in this scenario, you send Ben Simmons, who is still valued as a guy who could potentially be worth multiple first-round picks around the league, at least per some people inside the 76ers organization. Send Ben Simmons, one of the best defensive players in the league. Also a very good in transition offense. Seth Curry, who's a tremendous three-point shooter. Matisse Thybulle, who's not great offensively, but is one of the best, probably one of the 12 best defensive players in the NBA right now. So 2 defensive studs, someone who can run the offense but can't really shoot threes or free throws at this point, and a great three-point shooter, plus 3 future first-round picks for Damian Lillard, and you get rid of the Derrick Jones Jr. contract because he hasn't really worked out for you that much. I think that's a good deal for Portland. I think this would be a nice one. I don't know what you can ask for more here. Do you want 4 first-round picks? You could make that. You could ask for that. But again, if I'm the 76ers, I would balk at that. I would say there's no way I'm giving 4 first rounds plus Thybulle, plus Simmons, plus Curry. It just doesn't make sense to me, especially if Simmons is viewed as being a guy worth multiple first-rounders around the league. So this is a hypothetical scenario. I don't see it happening. I don't. But this would be a scenario where the 76ers get their man and, the Portland Trailblazers are getting a lot of bodies there that can really help out their team, especially on defense. The second option everyone's going to be talking about, you have Ben Simmons still involved in the trade because basically has to be for the financials to work for Ben Simmons' deal. Matisse Thybulle again, top 12 defense player, and Tyrese Maxey. So basically, you swap out Curry for Maxey. This is a deal that blows my mind. 76ers fans don't want to do a deal like this because they don't want to give up Simmons, Thybulle, and Maxey all in the same deal. But man, you're getting Damian Lillard. You're getting a top 10 player in the NBA, a guaranteed future Hall of Famer, maybe a future first ballot Hall of Famer, who at points in times has been valued on the same level as someone like Steph Curry. So it blows my mind that you might even consider turning down this kind of deal. It doesn't make any sense. The value you're sending out if you're Philadelphia is not equal to the value of Damian Lillard, even in this deal. Portland might ask for another first-round pick because you've got a backup player right now in Tyrese Maxey who's very young, could develop into a good player, but you have no idea what he's going to be. Thybulle is one-dimensional. Simmons has proven himself to be fairly one-dimensional recently. It's really, if this deal was to get pulled off, it would be a steal for Philadelphia, not the other way around. So I think 76ers fans need to kind of check their priorities and check their understanding of player value right now, because I don't think they're properly evaluating how much Damian brings to the table and how much better they would be with him on the roster. All right, another 76ers trade, this time surrounding Tobias Harris, who might actually be well, he's definitely a better offensive player at this point than Ben Simmons, but I don't know value-wise what he's projected at around the league. But putting him in there, he can basically score at every level, so it gives you a little bit of everything offensively. So Curry is, again, tremendous three-point shooter. Thybulle, top 12 defensive player, and 3 future first-round picks, including one this year. In return, Damian Lillard, and Portland gets rid of the Derrick Jones Jr. contract, which I'm assuming he's going to take, by the way, because I don't think anything he's done in Portland has made it so his value will be equal to $9.7 million or greater. So I think that he'll be kind of foolish to not pick that up, in my opinion. But then again, I don't have the best understanding of what players are valued at around the league. He could turn that down and go, I get $11 million a year. I don't know. But I think he'll take the player option, which is why I've included him in these deals. And we know Philadelphia's definitely the team option on Thybulle. But yeah, so the big change here is to put Tobias Harris in, so a more offensive-oriented player, in for Ben Simmons. And now it'd be very weird if you're Portland to have Harris, Curry, McCollum, Nurkic, who says he would want to be gone if Lillard gets traded. So you wouldn't have him even on the roster. It'd be a very weird combination of players at that point. I could see them, most of these situations, but if you're trading Damian Lillard and you're not getting Paul George in return, or Jimmy Butler or Bam Adebayo in return, you're probably blowing the team up. Probably, to some extent. So I don't know. I don't love any of the Lillard trades, to be honest, because unless you're getting, like I said, Paul George, because Paul George can be a top 10 player in a singular night. I don't know if he does it consistently, but he does have nights where he's a top 10 player in the world. Unless you're doing that for Paul George or maybe a Jimmy Butler, these guys who are top 15 level talents, it doesn't make a lot of sense otherwise, because you're basically automatically downgrading your roster for the next couple of years, and especially taking yourself out of contention in the Western Conference, where it's so top-heavy right now in terms of players and teams and having superstars. All right, a deal for Brandon Ingram, because he's a guy who gets traded a lot in these situations, or at least thrown around a lot in these conversations. I don't know why. Maybe it's because people are just assuming that it's Zion's team now to some extent. But I don't think the Pelicans and their rebuild process would work, getting rid of Brandon Ingram after having brought in Zion and Lonzo. Because while Lonzo is certainly a great scorer, he's not at the level of scorer as a Brandon Ingram. And Zion's not nearly versatile enough on offense yet to match what Brandon Ingram can do. Now, I don't like this trade. Because, again, I've highly undervalued Damian Lillard in this trade. I made these trades about 2 weeks ago or a week ago, somewhere in that span. And I'm regretting some of them, especially this one. I think this one should have at least 3 first-round picks attached. So Brandon Ingram, Lewis Jr., and 3 first-round picks for Damian Lillard would be the deal I would expect to be offered if this situation were to come up. And at that point, I would consider it if I'm Portland. But Brandon Ingram, to me, has not proven he can be a number 1 player on a competitive team. To me, he's still more of a number 2 option. Even though he's been to the All-Star game and someone like McCollum has not been there. Maybe he's a little bit better offensively than McCollum, but I don't think that he's in the same category as a Paul George or anyone like that. I don't know if he even is better than, say, Devin Booker, Donovan Mitchell. I don't know if he's better than those guys. I don't think he's better than Jason Tatum. So at what point do you say, hey, this is just not a good enough player to even be put in the conversation for a Damian Lillard trade? That's not to bash Brandon Ingram. He's a very good player. But at the same point, you have to understand the tiers here. There's a huge difference between being a top 10 player in the league right now and being a top 22 player or top 25 player, which I think Brandon Ingram is. It's just that the consistency is not there, and Lillard is just so much more lethal right now than someone like Brandon Ingram. Final trade before I wrap the video. And this is bad because I didn't include any compensation in terms of draft picks, and there should definitely be some. Jamal Murray is coming off an injury. Michael Porter Jr., who will definitely have his team option picked up after this season, for Damian Lillard. So you pair Lillard with Nikola Jokic here, and Nuggets are automatically one of probably the 3 favorites to win the finals next year. The issue here with this trade, again, is the compensation. There should be probably 2, at a minimum, 2 first-round picks attached here going to Portland, and probably multiple second-rounders as well. Jamal Murray's been a very good point guard, but he's not in the upper echelon. He's probably hovering around that McCollum tier, where it's like, you're a very good second option. Don't get me wrong. You're a very good player. But you're not going to be an all-star multiple times in your career, unless Jamal Murray continues to improve. He was phenomenal in the bubble last year, and he was much better this season than he has been in past years. But he's still not fully there as a player. And could he become an all-star in the future? Yeah, probably, but he won't be a consistent all-star at the same level as Damian Lillard. And again, Jamal Murray, a great number 2 option, but he's not going to be a true number 1. Denver, if you're Denver, you probably should give up as much as possible in terms of draft picks to get this deal done, because you will have Damian Lillard and Jokic on the same team. 2 true number 1 options, 2 top 10 players. And this could work because Jokic doesn't have the ball in his hands so much. Like, he gets the ball and he runs the offense out of the post. Yes, he passes quite a bit. And Lillard will have to adjust his game to maybe be more of a Steph Curry type guy where he moves around off the ball more, uses that off-ball movement. But at the same point, Jokic does not hold the ball very long in the post. He's very good at getting the ball and getting it out. So I think that could be a huge reason why that duo might work. On the other side, Michael Porter Jr. was phenomenal this season. He took the step forward. The biggest issue with him still is the injuries. People are always concerned about those. But he was the player everyone expected him to be when he was in the conversation of being the first overall pick before injuries eventually knocked him down a few picks. He's a guy who has limitations. He's not going to help you on defense. Offense, you'd still like to see him be a bit of a better inside finisher. But he's great from outside. He can heat up really quickly, and he will get you in the future easily over 20 points per game. So you get a ball handler in Jamal Murray who can get you close to 20 points per game. Michael Porter Jr., who in the future will consistently get you over 20 points per game. And again, I would throw in at least 2 first-round picks here as well, because this is not incomplete. There should be these 2 players plus 2 firsts and some seconds. And at that point, I think you might be approaching Damian Lillard because you have 2 young players here. But I believe are both still under 25 years old, maybe. Maybe Jamal Murray's 26, just over it. I know Porter Jr. is still under 25 for sure. But you will have these 2 players plus picks. The 2 stars for Damian Lillard. Does this make the Trailblazers a better team? No, it doesn't. It's still a little bit of building for the future because these are young players and you will have the future picks to build your team around. But you will have to extend Michael Porter Jr. That's one of the things. One of the issues with this deal is you'll have to pay Michael Porter Jr. a lot of money in the future. But as for the Nuggets, like I said, if the Nuggets can do this, give up what you have to do it. Get 2 top 10 players. Because we've seen teams with top 10 players, top 10 players in the past win championships. We've seen it recently with the Lakers, with Anthony Davis and LeBron James. We've seen it with the Heat when they had Dwayne Wade and LeBron. We've seen it with the Warriors when they had Curry and Durant. Get yourself 2 top 10 players if you can. This, to me, would be the most interesting deal of all of them because the dynamic of putting Lillard with Nikola Jokic and seeing how far that team could go with 2 superstars and future Hall of Famers on the roster would be very interesting. But for now, that's everything, guys. Go check out my previous videos if you enjoyed these. I'm sorry I couldn't be too loud in this video. My voice is going to some extent. My voice is going. Plus, there's people in the house that are still on calls for business. I don't want to interrupt them too much. So I'm sorry my voice got a little quieter as the video went on. But please go check out some of my other videos. And again, go follow me on Twitter at Sam_Teets. That's TEETS 33. There's plenty of sports content there every day. I write articles as well. You can find them there. And there's a link to a little bit of a portfolio with some of my better work as well. So thank you for watching. And I hope to see you all in the next video. If I can find a way to stop the recording.